Welcome to qualifying for the United States Grand Prix. Welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most evocative locations in the whole of motorsport. And when Britain's Lewis Hamilton started his Formula One career just a few short months ago, he identified Indianapolis as one of the circuits he was looking forward to most of all, a first chance to experience the very special history and atmosphere of this place. Well, he comes here having made history himself as the most successful rookie that the sport has ever seen, as the World Championship leader, and also after last weekend in Montreal, a Grand Prix race winner as well. Now we come to Indianapolis, which of course is a very different kind of challenge, the oldest established race circuit in motorsport, and Formula One has been here since the year 2000. It's had its problems with the Indy banking, of course, but it's what makes this US Grand Prix so special.
The legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the US Grand Prix, scene of many big accidents in Formula One, mostly for Ralf Schumacher it seems. The fans were totally unimpressed with the six-car race of 2005. It's a strange layout, 23 seconds full throttle with a Mickey Mouse infield to follow. Scene of many accidents down into turn 1, but it's the banking that's most interesting at turn 13. Well, it's just 2.6 miles around this Indy Grand Prix circuit, Mark. Just over 70 seconds for a fast lap. And of course, here we are at the infamous turn 13, the 9-degree banking. And well, you've had some pretty big accidents on these ovals. Tell us about what it's like to hit the wall.
Yeah. Actually, I've had a very big accident in Rio when I was in IndyCar racing. Brake failure, 122 G, 198 miles an hour impact. But I'd have to say that if I was going to hit the wall, I'd rather be hitting here into this than concrete, which you can see, which is actually behind the original concrete wall. And that to me is a lot safer. You've got at least, you know, a yard or so of absorption impact, and a lot safer than hitting concrete itself.
9 degrees doesn't sound very much, but it is quite steep here. Let's show you. So Marky boy, take it away, show him how steep it is. Some serious stuff now. Kimi Raikkonen needs a result for Ferrari this weekend. Turn 1, 70 miles an hour. 2 immediately follows. It's a chicane effectively. 3, a full throttle right-hander, no problem at all. Into turn 4, that's a late apex. You can get on the power early though. Sweeping through 5, no problem at all. Braking lightly for 6, but it nips on the exit, so you have to keep low and wait for the throttle. Short straight into 7. A crucial corner onto the back straight. Use the curb to arrest the slide. Move to the right-hand side gently, ready for heavy braking from 180 miles an hour down to just 75 for 8. So many cars sliding wide onto the grass there, no problem for Raikkonen. Turn 9, a really slow switchback, straight into yet another at 10, just 40 miles an hour. Bring it to the left-hand side immediately for the crucial turn 11. 80 miles an hour through the exit. You will not lift the throttle again for 23 seconds before you get to turn 1, unless you find Mark Blundell on a skateboard just around this corner. It's 190 miles an hour ahead, nothing for the driver to do much except hope he doesn't have a blowout or a mechanical failure. Up to 210 by the end of this long pit straight.
The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, scene of a great deal of British celebration in recent years, including just 3 weeks ago when Scotland's Dario Franchitti took victory in the Indy 500. We'll be hearing from Dario in our race build-up tomorrow. But before F1 qualifying here, coming up shortly, quick details of our ITV F1 competition. First pole position in the Formula One career of Lewis just a week ago. Now how can he build on all the Montreal success here at Indianapolis? Qualifying for the US Grand Prix is a few minutes away. US Grand Prix weekend in the famous surroundings of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and qualifying for this 7th round of the Formula One World Championship is described by Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the self-styled racing capital of the world. It's one of the shortest laps of the year in Formula One, Martin. This morning we saw 5 cars separated by 1/10 of a second up towards the front of the grid. Absolutely critical they don't make a mistake on their qualifying lap.
Yeah, a lot of drivers complaining too about the car feeling a little bit uncertain underneath them, some understeer creeping in. And I believe on the infield section, if the track temperature gets to around 55, 56, it sort of turns into a bit of a glue apparently out there. So some critical temperatures for the track surface. Drivers, I hadn't actually heard from a driver that was really super happy with how their car was feeling, and we'll see then how that translates onto the grid. Vettel looked good. We can assume that he probably ran a little bit lighter fuel than most, getting ready for that quali 2 critically to get themselves in, get him into the top 10 shootout. But as you say, James, it's a short circuit, a lot of it full throttle, and that's why we end up with such an incredibly close grid.
Every couple of laps of fuel you carry around here adds an extra 1/10.5 of a second to your lap time. So getting the right strategy, the right fuel load in the final part of qualifying will be critical. And obviously having a nice clean lap will also be critical. The final part of this lap is very tight and twisty. And we saw a lot of cars, including Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, encountering traffic this morning during the final free practice session. Well, it's a carnival atmosphere here in Indianapolis. Right below our commentary box is the Felipe Massa fan club. They've been drumming and singing and chanting and trying to get the crowd on their side for the last half hour in the build-up to this qualifying session. We've got a lot of Spaniards here, a lot of Brazilians, obviously quite a lot of Americans and Canadians as well, and a tremendous amount of people travelled over from Europe too. Fantastic atmosphere. This has been Ferrari heartland in the last 7 years here. They've only lost this race once, when Mika Häkkinen famously won for McLaren. So it's really been a Ferrari circuit, and this is a weekend when they need a big result. First car going out on track then, David Coulthard in the Red Bull. He's been quicker than teammate Webber all weekend, quite noticeably. There's a few drivers who've had the edge. Jenson Button has been faster than their teammate Barrichello so far. The Ferraris, there's been very little to choose between them. Same story with the McLarens. But Martin, one thing I noticed yesterday, which could turn out to be critical for tomorrow's Grand Prix, is that when Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso went out together on soft tyres towards the end of practice, Alonso was 2/10 quicker on that first lap, but after that Lewis was substantially quicker than him over the 7 or 8 lap run, which would tend to suggest the pattern that we've seen quite a bit this year, that Lewis is able to make those tyres last a bit longer to continue to get the performance out of them, which certainly bodes well for tomorrow's Grand Prix from his point of view.
Yes, I agree, and I'm hearing more and more that the drivers are finding they just have to very gently turn the cars into the corners with these latest tyres for 2007, the control tyres that they all have to run on. And maybe that plays into Lewis's hands, because he tends to back a car into a corner, doesn't he? He likes the back end sliding. He doesn't need so much steering angle. And I'm told if you just arrive into a corner carrying a lot of speed, and this is where Raikkonen's struggling, and crank the steering wheel on, you're just going to get understeer, the front tyre slipping across the surface, not turning the nose of the car into the corner. Now, we've seen David Coulthard. His strategy recently has been get out early, get a time in the bag, and give yourself a bit of breathing space at the end of these sessions. I mean, still only 11 and a half minutes remaining then of this session. We've yet to see a single flying lap. So maybe Coulthard just buying himself a bit more freedom and less pressure. Lock up there into turn 6.
Yeah, Coulthard, certainly one of those drivers who likes to get his eye in. He didn't like single lap qualifying. He likes the opportunity to build up his speed throughout the qualifying session. So a smart strategy for him, really. Psychologically, it helps him, and obviously it helps to have a nice clear lap as well. The Red Bull locking up a little bit. They haven't been terribly happy with the balance of the car, getting the compromise right between the flat-out straight section and the tight, twisty section as well. Getting the mechanical grip and the downforce balance sorted out is a very difficult compromise. Alonso says it's actually impossible to set a car up perfectly for this track. You'll only ever end up with a compromise.
And what Red Bull have is an extremely fast car in this section in top speed, which will be very handy in the race. We think they're going to race the striped, softer tyres. Even though they go away quite a lot, they're still overall faster than the hard tyre that Coulthard is on at the moment. It's a 1:13.8, and that, I don't think, will get him comfortably through into the second round of qualifying. He'll need a faster lap time than that to clear. 16 go through, remember, 6 fall away in the next 10 minutes.
Our first look at 19-year-old Sebastian Vettel. What an opportunity for him to do a Hamilton and make a stunning debut in Formula One. Here's another look at David Coulthard's lock-up there. Vettel was quick this morning, but it was interesting. He went suddenly 1.1 seconds fast by putting as Sutil goes wide. I was spectating down there this morning. He did that a couple of times. He's really trying to grab some extra speed through turn 8, and the drivers get very frustrated with that tight, twisty section at the end of the lap. But going back to Vettel, he definitely took some fuel out of the car and was running very light on a new set of soft tyres to set that time. But nevertheless, he's pretty close to teammate Heidfeld on pace this weekend, and that is a tremendous achievement for the 19-year-old. We look at the only American driver in the field, Scott Speed.
Coulthard now does a 1:13.4 on his second flying lap on the harder tyres, and that should be enough, I think, to get him through. He won't be able to relax too much, but that might just Liuzzi goes second with a 1:13.5. Davison third at the moment on a 1:13.9. Trulli 14.0. And we have 7 cars then that have completed a flying lap. Make that 8 now as Webber goes second for Red Bull, also on a 13.4.
Yeah, Webber just 5/100ths of a second slower than teammate Coulthard. Ralf Schumacher, who's had 2 very severe accidents here in the past, one for Williams and one for Toyota. And this is by far his least favourite Grand Prix circuit for that very reason. He actually says he doesn't think Formula 1 should come here. That's his own personal view, of course. Another set of hard tyres then for Kimi Räikkönen.
Kovalainen fastest. He's broken the 1:13 barrier just by a couple of thousandths. Fisichella a second for Renault. Kovalainen appearing to have an ounce of extra speed after his great 4th place result last weekend in Montreal. Kovalainen maybe finally getting up to speed and showing us the kind of pace and ability that we were expecting to see from him.
Nico Rosberg, he's been fast all weekend. He's 6-0 up in qualifying against teammate Wirtz this year. And Rosberg really coming of age as a Grand Prix driver now. Very frustrated in Montreal to have that stop-and-go penalty. He was running out of fuel, had to pit under the safety car when the pit lane was closed, as did Fernando Alonso. But it's been a series of strong runs recently for Nico Rosberg. He too has chosen the harder tyre, and the critical decision really for everybody is, can they get away with using the harder tyre and still make it through into the next session? Save up a set of softs, because you're certainly going to need them later on in qualifying and tomorrow in the race if it turns out that the soft is the better race option tyre. So it's a very difficult balance these drivers have got to strike. Try and get through on the hards if you can. Rosberg, a 1:13.1, puts him second behind Heikki Kovalainen. The only man to have broken through the 1:13 barrier.
Hamilton fastest man out there in first and second sector, and about to go comfortably fastest. They're the harder tyres too. He'll be buried well into the 1:12. Last man out of the pits, Vettel. They've kept him sweating, the young man who is having his first Grand Prix for BMW. Just 7 minutes remaining as Hamilton will go fastest.
Did you see how close Lewis Hamilton was to the wall? That has been his trademark this weekend. No one goes as close to the wall out of turn 13, or indeed through turn 12, as Lewis Hamilton. And he seems to like it up there. It doesn't faze him. He's mere inches from the wall at 185 miles an hour. He's fastest at the moment. Let's get a look at how fast Ferrari are going to be this afternoon. They weren't really in it this morning in free practice. Raikkonen 6th, Massa 7th. Let's see if they found something since then.
And you know Lewis Hamilton's response to, you're much nearer to the wall than the others, his response is, I don't want to do what all the others are doing. So that's his mentality. It seems to be paying off at the moment, but it's a comfortable time then on those hard tyres. Alonso is now out on track too, but he's a couple of tenths shy of Hamilton's first sector pace, as is Massa and Raikkonen too.
Through turn 12, up on goes the Ferrari of Kimi Räikkönen. He's a long way back in the Drivers' Championship compared to Lewis Hamilton, 21 points behind him. Has to get a big result here this weekend. He goes through in second place, a 1:12.7, 0.2 of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton. And there goes Alonso. He goes fastest, a 1:12.4, 1/10.5 quicker than Lewis Hamilton. All of these drivers using the harder tyre, getting away with it. Who's in the danger zone at the moment with 5 minutes to go? Anthony Davidson. Rubens Barrichello has yet to really get the speed going. Sutil, Albers, Heidfeld and Vettel, the 2 BMW drivers. Here is Vettel. Heidfeld goes 5th on a 1:12.7. Is Vettel faster or slower on his first flying lap in qualifying? He's a fraction slower, 0.2 slower.
So all of the middle pack around Button from P10 through Coulthard all the way down, well, right to the end of the field. 10 through 22 have to go out again, otherwise they could find themselves taking an early shower from this qualifying afternoon.
Well, you can see for yourself the drivers with the red number next to them, and that's the 6 drivers who, as things stand, look set to go out at the first round of qualifying. Rubens Barrichello, the previous race winner, a name you don't really expect to see in there, but Honda have been struggling this weekend, and they have a new front suspension package which is coming on stream. They're testing it next week in Jerez in Spain, and Jenson Button says, well, his season depends on it, really. It's the one thing that hopefully will hoist them up. Heidfeld is going for a second lap, and he is the fastest of anybody in Sector 2. So this could hoist Heidfeld right up and give everybody an idea of just how fast BMW are going to be this afternoon.
I tell you what, that's impressive from Heidfeld and BMW. Vettel's about to do the same thing. That is ominous for the rest of the field. The BMW can put 2 extremely hot laps in with no degradation at all. It's on the harder tyre, and Vettel goes P4. Mark Blundell said in the early part of the show, look out for the BMWs, and you certainly have got to. That is supremely impressive. Raikkonen on another effort too, and he is marginally faster at this point of the lap than he has been before, but he's blown it in the middle sector, but it looks about.
Yeah, Alonso fastest, Heidfeld second, Hamilton third, Vettel fourth, Massa fifth, Raikkonen sixth. Kovalainen is again faster than Fisichella at this stage. He's 7th, Rosberg is 8th, Fisichella is 9th, Jenson Button is 10th with David Coulthard in 11th, and Anthony Davidson is down in 19th place. Barrichello yet to improve. 3 minutes of the session remaining. Let's get some news from Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, and very nervous at Honda Racing. You say Jenson Button's 10th, but he's stuck down at the weighbridge, and it doesn't look like he can get going again. We saw last year how getting stuck in the weighbridge can actually delay and ruin your qualifying. Jenson dropped out because of it. The mechanics have just sprinted down the pit lane. It doesn't look like he can get his car going after being weighed, James.
Well, we've seen this.
Okay, remember to open the TCX1 click to TCX position 2 for these option tyres. Copy, it was slightly loose on this front, so I'm thinking of keeping it at the moment. Okay, copy that. There it is on the outlap.
So what they're saying to him is that you've got grippier tyres, so just free off the traction control a little bit, give yourself a bit more power to the rear wheels. And he's saying, hang on, they were spinning anyway, I might just leave it as it was and enjoy the extra grip of the softer tyres. But the big news for me here is that BMW and McLaren are faster than Ferrari in race pace.
Certainly looks that way at the moment. The single lap performance of both of those cars, absolutely stunning. A lot of drivers pouring out onto the racetrack now, and they're all going for this white stripe tyre. That's the softer of the 2 tyres. We have the soft and medium from the range that Bridgestone have this year. There's super soft, soft, medium and hard. We had super soft and soft last race in Montreal. Here we have the soft and the medium. Davidson goes into 9th place for Super Aguri. That's a fantastic lap for him, a 1:13.1, and it's incredibly tight in that midfield area. Coulthard has 12th on a 1:13.4, and 16th is Liuzzi, 1:13.5. Something fell off Davidson's car there, did it?
Yep, a little piece is on the racing line. Hopefully it's not got sharp edges, because the tyres, as we know well, and to the great cost in 2005, the tyres are so immensely loaded in that banking, and Davidson doing a good enough time to get him in the top 10. And Button did get out of the pits in time to give himself a chance of another flying lap. He did clear the end of the pit lane.
Oh, Coulthard off the track. 12th place at the moment, David Coulthard. He just set his personal best in the first sector, and it looks to me like he's dropped it at turn 8, which is the corner I was talking about before. The drivers try and steal a little bit more time from that corner by carrying a higher entry speed into there, and it's caught Coulthard out. There's Christian Horner, who's steering this team, Red Bull Racing, back towards up towards the top of the grid in Formula One. A lot of effort and resources going in.
He locked the left front on the way in. He had his right tyre very close to the white line on the right. Car got a little bit away from him, had to turn into the slide, spun on the grass. He can get another lap in, so and he needs to, that's for sure. Coulthard not at all comfortable, and he'll be angry with that because he was much faster in the first sector than he had been. So DC there blowing it in turn 8, but he might just get a second chance. Checkered flag is out, session is over. All those on a hot lap are able to complete it.
Well, Barrichello is one of them. At the moment, you can see there he's in 20th place as Heikki Kovalainen goes through. He's still using the harder tyre. He's obviously just getting a feel for the racetrack in these qualifying conditions, putting some laps in. Where's Barrichello? There he is. He pops up into 11th place, a fraction faster than teammate Jenson Button. So it's Liuzzi, Trulli, Speed, Sato, Sutil and Albers. And really, Trulli is the shock there. Ralf Schumacher 17th, both the Toyotas. Then Trulli pops out of it. He's gone up into 12th place. Ralf Schumacher goes up to 7th, so Toyota right at the last finding a bit of speed. And that puts Alex Wurz into the drop zone. 2 Toro Rossos, 2 Spikers. Davidson is not in the danger zone. He looks like he might get through here. He's at 10th at the moment. Button tries to improve on the second lap, but doesn't. So Anthony Davidson has got himself into the second part of qualifying for Super Aguri. Great effort for him, but poor old Alex Wurz in the wars again, Martin.
Yeah, Coulthard just makes it. I think everybody now has completed their hot lap, so Button and Coulthard 14th and 15th just survive. Mark Webber 16th too. Unusual for him. He's normally man of the match, isn't he, in qualifying on so many occasions. But Red Bull then surviving just. Liuzzi in Speed for Toro Rosso not making it. And look at that.
Look how close it is. Alonso, Heidfeld and Hamilton separated by a 10th of a second. Second part of qualifying then, coming right up. Qualifying for tomorrow's American Grand Prix at Indianapolis, and you just saw the back of the only American driver in the field, Scott Speed. He's been eliminated. He will start tomorrow's race in 20th place. The first knockout part of qualifying then has gone through. We're about to start the second, and basically the top 10 only will go through from this 15-minute session to make it through to the pole position shootout. And here's a team that looks poised to spring a surprise. BMW have been getting faster and faster as this season has gone on. Heidfeld's been heroic a number of times, including, of course, Montreal last weekend. Robert Kubica, their regular driver, had a big accident in Montreal and has not been allowed by the doctors to take part. So this young man, 19-year-old Sebastian Vettel, is in the car. And I wouldn't bet against one of these two BMWs having a go for the pole here. They're close enough to McLaren to take a bit of fuel out and give it a try. So we will see whether that happens. But let's get down to Louise Goodman and get some news from her.
Yes, I'm with Takuma Sato, one of the heroes of the last Grand Prix in Montreal, but not gone so well for you today in qualifying.
No, unfortunately, it was traffic in the first one. The second one, fortunately, long wide a little bit in turn 1, and that made it very difficult for the rest of the lap. So,
thanks, Taku.
Well, there's certainly a pattern emerging here in the first part of qualifying. It looks as though Alonso is slightly quicker over a single lap than teammate Hamilton, but as we were saying earlier, Hamilton's long run performance looks stronger, so he's in good shape for the race. But I fancy Alonso the quicker of the two in qualifying trim. A few teammates faring less well than others. Alex Wurz 0.3 of a second slower than teammate Rosberg, and that's certainly put him out of the game, but tremendously close in the midfield. And David Coulthard was lucky to make it through, just a couple of tenths away from the drop zone. So into the second part of qualifying we go. There's Tonio Liuzzi, one of the drivers eliminated for Toro Rosso. We've been talking in the first part of qualifying about the sectors. There are 3 sectors around every lap of a Grand Prix circuit, and this track, the first one is 23 seconds long, the middle one's about half a minute, and the final one is just over 20 seconds as well. And it's very interesting to compare the performance of the cars and the drivers through each of the individual sectors. That's why we talk about sector times. And certainly here in Indianapolis, the final sector is really just the flat-out blast through the last 2 corners and down the first straight. A little bit of a couple of twisty corners at the end of the pit straight. The middle part of this lap is very tight and twisty. So you can see the performance of the cars compared to each other, which cars have got more downforce on, which ones are running a bit less, that kind of thing. And of course we have the speed trap down the main straight, which tells us that the fastest man through there at the moment is David Coulthard, who is doing 205 miles an hour towards the end of the pit straight. A young fan there enjoying his day in the sun. It's a pretty warm day in Indianapolis, 34 degrees the air temperature, track temperature of 54. Just as I speak, you see it, and the humidity's right down, so it's a dry heat here, thankfully, at the moment. And a big crowd, actually, usually the biggest one-day crowd of the season on the Sunday, but a decent crowd for the Saturday. And there is Nelson Piquet, 3 times a world champion. His son is the test driver for the Renault team. Let's hear from Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, just talking about Sebastian Vettel, and regular viewers will know that he's a big fan of Little Britain. His favourite sketch, James, is Lou and Andy. But he's actually, the way his mind works is hilarious. He's actually been using their catchphrase over the radio to the engineers. He's been talking about, you know, getting in a bit of a kerfuffle. And of course, there's no such word in German as kerfuffle, so all the engineers and mechanics have no idea what he's talking about. But it pleases him, so, well, good for him anyway.
Second part of qualifying then for tomorrow's American Grand Prix. Out onto the racetrack goes Anthony Davidson, who did a fantastic job in the first part of qualifying. Get himself through. Teammate Sato did not make it. And so often we've seen Davidson put in some stellar lap times in a free practice on Saturday morning, but then when it comes to it on Saturday afternoon, sometimes he tenses up a little bit, but he looks pretty relaxed here, doesn't he?
He does. Shane Sato drove brilliantly last weekend. Amazingly, on the F1 ITV website on Monday, despite Lewis winning his first Grand Prix, at one point I think 60% of the voters had voted Sato as driver of the day in Montreal last weekend rather than Lewis. So I guess because he was cruising up and passing the likes of Raikkonen and Alonso, and beautifully too. But Sato not so happy this weekend.
No, well, Davidson was fast here last year. He was the 3rd driver for Honda, so he ran on the Friday, and he was the quickest man here on the Friday. Here's his team boss, Aguri Suzuki, former teammate of yours, Martin.
Yeah, we raced together at Ligier and at Le Mans, actually, for Nissan.
And Davidson's onto a hot lap. Just 13 corners around this Indy road circuit. The main oval, of course, goes round the outside of it. There's a golf course as well over to Davidson's left at the moment. It's a pretty massive facility here. And Davidson is through into turn 6, 70 miles an hour at the apex of this corner in the Super Aguri Honda. With that seamless shift gearbox just flicking him up seamlessly. The power continues unbroken as he accelerates towards 180 miles an hour before picking his braking zone for turn 8 here. 70 miles an hour on the turn-in.
It needs to be a mid 1 minute 12, I reckon, James, for anybody hoping to get through into the top 10 shootout. And fractions are going to count for everybody here. We could see 1 or 2 high-level drivers disappointed this afternoon and not in this top 10.
Absolutely right, we could. And it could come down to a matter of a tenth or a tenth of a half, separating 4 or 5 of them. 10 minutes of the session remaining. Davidson does a 1:13.3. He's currently fastest, the only man to set a time, but Trulli eclipses that with a 1:13.1. Toyota only just got themselves out of danger at the very, very end of that first part of qualifying. It's good to see Ralf Schumacher back on form. He's had a torrid time so far this season in qualifying, completely eclipsed by teammate Jarno Trulli. Here's Coulthard. He just made it through as well. Ralf Schumacher goes 3rd on a 1:13.6, half a second slower than Jarno Trulli. And this is the fastest you'll see the cars all weekend. This is the low fuel. How quick can we get this car to go around this racetrack format? Coulthard goes quickest to 1:12.8. So he's got the Toyotas behind him and the Super Aguri. Riding on board then with Lewis Hamilton. Can he find a little bit more single lap pace to get himself on terms with his teammate Fernando Alonso?
It's a 10th up on what he did in qualifying 1 in the first sector. Webber's fastest at the moment on a 12.7, and that pretty much is going to be around the cut-off point. I'm expecting Lewis to be very low 1 minute 12s, if not even a 1:11, slight lock-up, but got away with it. And another one, missed the apex this time. That hurt him by a 10th. He's not looked as comfortable around this track as he has previously, no doubt about it. Lewis just struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it's been particularly the middle section of the lap where he has difficulties. Here, look how close he get to the wall, running the car right out to get all the maximum he can. The car just run wide and get the speed as he comes out of turn 13, inches away from the wall at 180 miles an hour, a 1:12.0. That's pretty fast, but we saw that he could have gone a little quicker, as Martin pointed out. So what can Alonso do? Remember, this is not for pole position. This is just to get them through into the top 10 shootout.
That's a great time from Lewis, but you just don't sense he's got the car quite where he has, certainly last weekend in Montreal, where it looked absolutely perfect. But he's certainly on for a front row grid slot, I would say.
But remember, of course, that with this format where the car then goes straight into Parc Fermé after qualifying, a lot of these drivers thinking more about the race than about qualifying. These cars are set up for racing, not necessarily single lap pace. And Hamilton is very happy with his car on long run format. Now, we saw Alex Wurz going out, and as Kimi Raikkonen goes through to complete a lap, Alex Wurz is talking with Louise Goodman.
Yeah, and Alex missed the cut by just a fraction, just over 100th of a second. Was it a specific issue or just not the balance quite right?
Right, first run was all right. Like the way it did, car felt acceptable, a bit oversteery. Then I go out in the second run and I have a lot of understeer, which cost me all the time more than half a second in the first sector. And this was just really hit me by full surprise. Such a big difference I didn't have between two sets of tires for the entire weekend. So I asked the engineers to look into this, and I'm really disappointed because I felt today would have been a good day. Car was all right, so that's why I'm a bit grumpy, to be honest.
Thanks, Alex.
Massa goes second on a 12.1. Raikkonen again, half second adrift. He's third at the moment, but a lot of time to find and bucket loads of understeer for Kimi Raikkonen on his hot lap as we were listening to Alex Wurz there. So it does seem as if it's sort of mid, maybe a 12.6 or a 12.7 will just squeeze through. Alonso's now on his hot lap. Hamilton still fastest. But what Wurz was talking about there, we've heard so much in the paddock. I'm not sure exactly what I've got underneath me each time I go out onto the racetrack.
Well, Rosberg looks set to get himself into the top 10 with this one, but whether it'll keep him there is debatable. A 1:13.0 for him, but I fancy he may need to find a bit more in the remaining 6 minutes of this qualifying session. Alonso, though, is the fastest of anybody on the first sector. He's 2/1000ths of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton. That gives you an idea of how Hamilton stepped up. This is where Hamilton made a couple of small errors that might allow Alonso through. He's certainly been very composed on the single laps this weekend, Fernando Alonso. Like this track, he's never had a good result here. Even last year in his World Championship winning Renault, he couldn't get himself up onto the podium. But he's almost 2/10ths quicker than Hamilton. That's how much Hamilton lost then in that middle part on his lap.
Yeah, Alonso's never been in the front two rows of the grid at this Grand Prix. Always struggled with the understeer of the Renault. He's changed his driving style with this McLaren. He gets sub 1 minute 12, 11.926. Vettel has gone 6th for BMW, splits the two Red Bulls. Webber is 5th and Coulthard 7th at the moment. Kovalainen, Rosberg, Fisichella 7, 8 and 9.
Yep, Heidfeldt's going to come through though. This is going to be quick from Nick Heidfeldt. His middle sector's been excellent. Where does he go? The final sector not so clever, but he's 4th, 1:12.1, just 0.08 of a second slower than Massa, and just a 10th slower than Lewis Hamilton. So he's in the hunt, Nick Heidfeldt, right at the front. Alonso, Hamilton, Massa, Heidfeldt, Raikkonen, the top 5. Raikkonen 0.7 of a second off the pace of Alonso. That'll be causing some concern at Ferrari. Webber is 6th for Red Bull. 7th is Vettel. 8th is Coulthard. 9th Kovalainen, still in front of teammate Fisichella. Going well here then, Kovalainen. And 10th is Rosberg. And what's the benchmark going to be, Martin? A 1:12.8, something like that?
Well, let's wait and see. They're all under pressure really, from Webber in 6th, I would say, right down to Ralf Schumacher in 16th. But most under pressure, Toyota, Renault and Honda. It does seem as if Red Bull have got the pace. They've certainly got the straight line speed. Coulthard still easily the fastest man in a straight line, so they've got the speed down the pit straight. Can they hook it up around the middle part of the lap?
Well, that's the 6 drivers in the drop zone at the moment. I don't think it'll stay that way to the end.
I think we should another turn.
the places where I lost out were turn 3. I got a little bit onto the marbles, and that screwed me for about a tenth, something. And turn 4, I had too much understeer as well.
Jenson Button down in 14th place, teammate Barrichello 13th. Button is, well, compared to the pace set, is 7/10 slower in sector 1, 4/10 slower in the middle sector, and 2/10 slower in the final sector. So it's really sector 1 that's hurting the Hondas here.
And of course, those that qualify between 11th and 16th, this will set their starting grid position. Ted has news on Jenson.
Yeah, just peering into the Honda garage, and you say turn 1's hurting them. Well, it's hurting Jenson Button a lot more than Rubens Barrichello's. Again, Rubens seems to be quicker than Jenson. Not quite sure why that is. The tyres probably, but just from where I am, I can see that they're just putting on half a turn of front wing, so it must have been understeer in that Honda.
Thank you for that, Ted. Anthony Davidson is 15th at the moment, and his lap time almost identical to Jenson Button's, just 5/100ths of a second slower. Here he is, and he's going quicker. He's a tenth and a bit inside the top 10 margin, so this is the first indication of how much more the track is developing, how the speed is increasing out there on this blisteringly hot day in Indiana. Anthony Davidson then. Well, he dropped back a bit at the end. A poor final sector means he's 14th, and he's going to need to find some more in the 2¼ minutes remaining. Button goes out on track, so does Jarno Trulli.
It's over for Anthony. He does split the two Hondas, but he's coasting down now, and he's had the best out of those super soft tyres, as they're called. 2 minutes remaining then. Alonso still the fastest man. Top 8 all still in the pits, although Webber just left the pits. It is going to be very busy out there. 16 cars. Davidson will pit, so it'll be 15 cars then, all on a hot lap at the same time.
Yeah, Vettel's not feeling comfortable with his position, so he's going out as well. Kovalainen out on the racetrack. Just the top 4 feeling confident enough to stay there. Alonso, Hamilton, Massa and Heidfeld are spectators for this final minute and a half, along with Flavio Briatore there, the boss of Renault.
And Nelson Piquet Sr. will be trying everything he can to crowbar Nelsinho Piquet Jr. into the Renault and to get Kovalainen out of it, no doubt. But Kovalainen beginning to do a good job. But certainly there'll be some pressure there, and for little Piquet to get in.
Well, it's very interesting, in complete contrast to the start of this 2007 season. Ferrari feel they need to get another run in.
Jarno, everybody behind you is on an outlap. Everybody behind you is on an outlap. Jarno, you can take.
Okay, so everyone behind him is on an outlap. That's a reference to traffic issues. Do I let him through? Is he on an outlap or a hot lap? Obviously, the drivers need to know where they are. But as I was saying, Ferrari, both Raikkonen certainly. Massa doesn't feel he needs to do another run, but Kimi Raikkonen does. Not feeling comfortable then in 5th place. Very, very different story from Australia, where he took pole and won on his debut for Ferrari.
Raikkonen's just gone fastest of anybody by some margin in the final sector. Unfortunately for him, on his outlap, so it doesn't really count for anything. Gives him a good slingshot into the pit straight. Suggests he's used up a bit of his grip too early. He's used the grip up on the outlap rather than the first sector. Let's see if he can translate that into better speed anyway. And indeed, Raikkonen is quick in the first sector. He's a lot happier on these tyres.
Everybody out there is improving at the moment. They're all going quicker than they have so far. So the bar is being raised constantly here. And it's impossible to say at this point who will be in the top 10 and who is going to miss out. The two Renaults together on the racetrack, Kovalainen and Fisichella. Coming through to complete the lap.
For 5th place for Kovalainen.
Kovalainen goes 5th, Fisichella goes 6th, so by, well, a hundredth of a second between the two of them. So evenly matched, the pair of them. Button is 12th. He goes, where's Rosberg? 14th.
Raikkonen goes P3. Webber's got himself, he's still P8 at the moment. Vettel struggling in 9th and improves now to 8th. Webber 9th, Trulli 10th. Coulthard does another one, 12-8, and has missed the cut. He remains 11th at the moment.
Ralf Schumacher, 12th. Jenson Button, 13th. Rosberg, 14th. Barrichello, 15th. And Davidson 16th. Let's have a look at Nico Rosberg. And so Williams not making it into the top 10 here in qualifying. There is Anthony Davidson. So he has missed the cut, but so has Rosberg, and that's the big surprise here. So has Coulthard. Webber's just squeaked through, though, in 9th place.
So Alonso then comfortably, I say comfortably, just over a tenth faster than Hamilton, 1-2 for McLaren. Raikkonen, the biggest improver on the second run in that session, gets himself up to 3rd, Massa 4th. They have got to get ahead of those BMWs on the grid because they look very good in race trim. Heidfeld for BMW 5th. Kovalainen and Fisichella pulled it out of the bag for Renault. They're 6th and 7th and through to the shootout. Vettel in his first Grand Prix, 8th at the moment. Webber 9th, truly squeezes the toy in, as he so often does, as the final man into the top 10 shootout. Coulthard will start 11th. The biggest bonus of starting 11th is you can choose your race strategy exactly how you want. Whereas these guys have now got to put their race fuel in and take it into the shootout now.
We're watching qualifying for tomorrow's United States Grand Prix here at Indianapolis, and the top 10 shootout is coming up in just a few minutes' time. It's McLaren setting the pace so far. As expected, Mark Blundell and Fernando Alonso looking perhaps the more comfortable of the two.
He's been a little bit stronger all weekend, but I'm very impressed at the moment. We've only got like 5 cars covered by 0.2 of a second, and also BMW have definitely made some headway, and Ferrari with Raikkonen and Massa seem to be a little as well. So this pole position could really be a good shootout for us.
Impressions of Lewis Hamilton so far? He's got so much to learn at the circuit here. He usually learns quickly, but he's not quite up to speed yet.
Well, we're saying he's not quite up to speed. He's only a couple of attempts away from his teammate, and that's easily doable around a circuit like this. One little mistake, one corner, he can blow 0.2 of a second quite easily. So don't write him off. I think he can still surprise us with another pole position.
Most impressive so far, BMW.
Very impressive. They are definitely making great strides. Progress being made from the beginning of the season. If you start to look where they're at now, by the end of this season we could really have a big contender for trying to get a Grand Prix win under the belt.
And Sebastian Vettel coming in for Robert Kubica. A very composed performance.
Yeah, I mean it was going to be tougher in qualifying, and also the race will be another hurdle for him to jump, but so far he's done a great job. Solid, hasn't made any mistakes, and that's the main point.
But it's another session that tests the composure of Jenson Button and Rubens and all at Honda.
Yeah, unfortunately Honda still having a struggle, and Red Bull a little bit also with DC having some struggles as well. But I think overall though, BMW is the most impressive party for me here today.
Okay, so it's about 45 seconds to go to this final pole position shootout. Fernando Alonso, quickest so far in the 2 sessions we've had from Lewis Hamilton. Just tell us, it's not Monaco, so exactly how important is pole position here at Indianapolis?
It is important. Any race you go to, psychologically you want to be on pole. It's important for the team. But at the end of today, I don't think it will make a great difference. As long as they're both on the front row together, then they can dictate into their first corner.
Well, Lewis Hamilton achieved his first pole position of his Formula One career in Canada last weekend. What can he do in this final session as we rejoin Martin and James?
Sebastian Vettel then the last to go out onto the racetrack. We look over the top of Jarno Trulli's car. The green lights are on. Lewis Hamilton is at the head of the queue. He's been sitting waiting there for 2 or 3 minutes, as the McLaren of this year is able to do without overheating, and so he has the honours out onto the track. But we're talking about the BMW and its performance. It's been a steady curve of improvement for this team since BMW took over from Peter Sauber his operation. Sauber, in all his years of Formula One, never able to improve on 4th in the Constructors' Championship. But they look set to finish certainly 3rd, and possibly better if they can keep this performance going. They look faster than Ferrari at the moment here this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see what tactics they all assume, but a lot of the work BMW have done has been aerodynamic work. They've got a very sophisticated rear wing, and there's lots of detailed changes being brought to the car right throughout the season, and it's really working. The car is very good, very strong, very slippery in a straight line, and plenty of downforce around the corner. Well, we saw Jenson Button going out in that final session. He's testing some new parts, front suspension next week at Jerez, and Louise Goodman, I guess they can't come soon enough for him.
Jenson, we heard you talking about the problems with turn 1. Was that the part of the track that was giving you the most trouble?
Along with the other 9 corners. In Q1, the car felt good on the first run. Then I had some problems when I got weighed. And after that, the car felt very different. We had to keep adjusting the front wing by a degree, which is a lot to be changing the car. And in Q2, my last lap was as quick as I could go, really. And you know, I crossed the line thinking it was a good lap, and I was down in P13. So it's where we are. But it's also very close to the cars in front, who actually have reasonably good cars. So it's not so bad.
It is nip and tuck. Has that surprised you that the times are so close?
It is. You know, there are a lot of cars that have been very quick all year. The Red Bulls and the Williams of Rosberg, and you know, we're very close to them in qualifying here. We have to see what happens in the race, but so that's quite nice. It's actually nice that we can race people at the same sort of pace as the people around us, and even up to 9th position. So it's okay.
Thanks, Jens.
Webber using the amazing straight line speed of the there to good effect in this race setup, fuel burning mode, and completely different tactics from Hamilton, who sat at the end of the pit lane for 3 minutes because he can, and very few Formula 1 cars have ever been able to do that. But it's all part of a strategy to where, when they get their laps completed, where they feed out into the traffic later on in this session. Alonso went at it completely differently. Alonso sat in the pits, waited for all of the other 9 to be around the other side of the track to give himself free air, and he'll come at it from a different way. David Coulthard is with Louise Goodman.
Yeah, David, P11, you're going to be the first man on the road who's able to adjust his fuel strategy. How much of an advantage is that going to give you if the guy's just in front of you?
Well, given that we're in a similar pace to the 2-3 cars in front of us, then possibly if you're able to use it to your advantage, of course, it will be good. I would expect the 2-3 cars at the back of that fast group to be running quite long anyway, because they can't realistically expect to get in front of McLarens, Ferraris, BMWs. So we probably won't be that dissimilar.
We saw you struggling a bit on some of the infield. Still having an issue there?
Yeah, the car kind of sits between understeer and oversteer, and depending on the corner, depending on how aggressive you brake. So I had one little spin during qualifying at the end of the back straight, but other than that, I think your interview is over.
Thanks, David.
So the third and final part of the qualifying session for tomorrow's American Grand Prix at Indianapolis, the pole position shootout, the 10 fastest cars from the first 2 qualifying sessions going head-to-head for the first 5 rows of the grid for tomorrow's race. We're riding on board with Sebastian Vettel, the 19-year-old, making his debut for BMW, standing in for the injured Robert Kubica. Although, strictly speaking, there's nothing particularly wrong with Kubica. The doctors didn't want to risk him having another concussion, so they've made him sit this one out quite sensibly. And that gives Vettel his chance to emulate Lewis Hamilton and come into Formula 1 in a good car, in a very competitive situation. BMW looking very strong at the moment, and impress everybody with what he can do. Quite a lot of time behind the wheel, Sebastian Vettel, over the last couple of years. He was the Friday driver for BMW last year. Hasn't done too much running this year, hasn't sat in the car since Malaysia, I'm told. But nevertheless, he's jumped straight in, and he's done already 1.5 Grand Prix distances during the course of free practice, so he's fully up to speed. And now we'll see what he's made of in qualifying.
I still think if I was sitting beside him on the grid tomorrow, I'd have a bit of a wary eye on him, actually. A teenager in his first ever Grand Prix at the sharp end of the grid, as he will certainly be now. And does he really know where he wants to be pressing the brake pedal down into turn 1? He's a good kid, he races well, but that's a lot to ask for him tomorrow.
It's absolutely staggering, isn't it? This is a legacy of the rules in karting being changed years ago that meant that instead of being 11 when they started racing, kids were allowed to start racing at the age of 8. And the first ones to come through who benefited from that were Jenson Button, Kimi Raikkonen, Fernando Alonso. Now we're seeing Hamilton and Vettel coming through, 19 years of age. We look at Ralf Schumacher there in the Toyota pit. He's only, 3 years older than your son Alex, isn't he? And he's racing a Formula 1 car. Staggering.
It is amazing, isn't it? That's Vettel, not Ralf Schumacher, of course. Schumacher starts this race in 12th position. Hamilton, comfortably the fastest man in this phase. 1:13.0. That's a good time in race trim. A very, very good time. And you have to say, although Lewis looks like he's just a shade behind Fernando Alonso here in raw single lap pace, if he hooks one up and makes no mistakes, I think he could even be quicker. He could still be on pole position, no doubt about it.
Yes, it was only a matter of hundredths of a second between them at the end of that second qualifying session, and as we've said, Hamilton looks the more comfortable in race conditions, so his challenge tomorrow will be very strong indeed, even if he misses out on the pole here. There's Felipe Massa. Ferrari need to find some speed. Might try something tactically, do something a little bit different to try and get themselves in the game. Big moment there for Massa.
And what we're finding is like a double whammy. Those that are hard on their tyres are slow, and then their wear rate seems to accelerate massively, and they just go even slower after that. BMW then, first man in for Vettel to put on a fresh set of white striped tyres. I don't know, they're the harder tyre he's going for. BMW, who did that very good lap early on, has decided to try and qualify on the hard tyre. Louise is with Anthony Davidson.
Yeah, Anthony, P16, you were blindingly quick at this track when you were a test driver here last year. Is it a circuit that you enjoy?
Yeah, it is. I normally go well here. It's a tricky circuit though, because it's relatively easy to do quite a decent lap. So you see a lot of the times being so close together, and if you just make one tiny error, that's it. You're out the pack. So yeah, I mean, I luckily drove some decent laps today and got that sweet spot in the car balance-wise, but just missed out probably a tenth, I reckon. There was a tenth more to go. Good fight between me and the Hondas at the end, and shame to end Q2 in last position, but a brilliant job to get through. I just want to say a massive thanks to the team for getting me out there even in qualifying one, because I touched the wall in the previous session this morning and put a 7G loading through a suspension, so they had to change to the T car, so that was just done out there in the T car, so shows that they make them good.
It was worth the effort. Well done.
Thanks. He was 0.2 of a second faster than teammate Takuma Sato, the hero of Montreal last weekend. A lot of drivers pouring in now to take on new tyres and go out there and do a lap. They're obviously going to do a couple of runs.
Hard tyres for the Renaults too. That is a surprise for me. I thought they'd all be on the soft tyres, but of course they'll have another run yet. 6.5 minutes remaining. Soft tyres going on the McLaren though.
That's Fernando Alonso, the reigning world champion. Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, it just seems with these hard tyres, James, what they're doing, Vettel and Trulli are the one on the hard tyres, as well as the ones that you said. They just seem to be more predictable, these hard tyres. So they're going to go out, set a banker lap with low-ish fuel on these hard tyres, come back in, put in the softs as Lewis Hamilton just comes in front of me. Let's see what he's going to put on. Put on the soft, and then they'll go out and set a final qualifying time on the tyre that knows that they're going to put. Yeah, Lewis is on the soft, so McLaren splitting their efforts there.
Well, there's almost no point in going out on anything other now than what you think is your fastest tyre. So clearly the BMW, we have seen this quite a lot. They've liked that harder tyre, and often you don't get the raw mechanical grip from the harder rubber, but you do feel you can lean on the tyre just a little bit more and get your lap time that way.
Well, Massa's just gone the fastest of anybody in the final sector, doing what Raikkonen did in Quali 2. Hope he doesn't take too much out of his tyres. It didn't do Raikkonen any harm in that previous session. He managed to hoist himself up the rankings. He too has just gone very quick. They feel they have to push these tyres hard then in the final sector to get them up to temperature. It has been a problem all year for Ferrari, particularly the front tyres, getting them to grip a new set of tyres in qualifying and on the single lap has been their weakness, if you like. And well, it seems that they found a way of dealing with it here, but they're still not on McLaren's pace.
A lot of steering wheel movement having to go on inside that Ferrari. There's some talk in the paddock that with the B-spec car they brought out for Barcelona, they went the wrong way, Ferrari. And it's not so much that McLaren have just cruised past them and moved ahead, is that Ferrari have actually slipped a little bit backwards as well. Massa on track now, not much more for him to do than just coax it around the banking. A lot of drivers go up a bit higher and then use the slope to gain acceleration for the exit. He's nowhere near the wall, doesn't feel the need to do that, and does a 1:12.7, 1:12.8 for Heidfeld. So crucially then, Massa ahead of Heidfeld, Ferrari ahead of the BMW. What can Raikkonen do? It's P2, 1:12.8.
Okay, the two McLarens are on track. Alonso is in front of Hamilton on the racetrack. They will come through shortly, and at the moment the fastest man out there is Fernando Alonso. He's half a sector ahead of Hamilton, effectively, a few hundred metres then on the racetrack.
Small luck up for Alonso. We just heard Anthony Davidson saying, the tiniest error can put you out of position here, but Alonso, fastest first sector, fastest second sector as well. Although Hamilton's now usurped that by a couple of tenths. Alonso over the line now.
It's looking good for Hamilton. That middle sector's been good to him and bad for Alonso. Alonso goes through on a 1:12.5, but Hamilton should be quicker. With 3.5 minutes of the session to go, there is Lewis Hamilton, inches from the wall through turn 13. He goes fastest, a 1:12.385. He is just over a tenth of a second quicker, and there is time for another run.
Yeah, they've got to get back to the pits pretty quickly, but because it's such a short lap, 3 minutes 12 to go, and he'll have to push it back to the pits if he wants another go. This is not over yet, but Hamilton, sadly we weren't on board with him, but Hamilton did hook up a beautiful one, and it was Alonso who just locked that brake at turn 9. Soft tyres on Heidfeld's BMW.
Yep, Heidfeld is 5th fastest at the moment, just 1/100th of a second slower than Kikkonen and a 10th of a second slower than the Ferrari of Felipe Massa. Can he find a little bit more speed and get that BMW in front of the Ferraris on the grid? That's going to be his challenge. Mark Webber is launched. He's 10th at the moment. It's Hamilton, Alonso, Massa, top 3. Then it's Raikkonen, Heidfeld. Vettel is 6th, 7th Kovalainen, 8th Jarno Trulli, 9th Giancarlo Fisichella, and 10th Mark Webber with 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. We have got a tense pole position shootout between Lewis Hamilton and his teammate Fernando Alonso. Ferrari don't seem to be in it at the moment. They're more worried about the BMWs than they are about the McLarens. And where are the Renaults going to finish up on all this?
McLaren are having to queue in the pit lane. Hamilton's queuing behind Alonso. They released the Ferrari there just in front of the BMW. There's another replay of that. We've seen a lot of that going on as they're squabbling for track position and clear air. And in the race, they may just get penalised for that. The two McLarens then, and they're now both away. Alonso and Hamilton both away. There's more than enough time to get the outlap done, but they'll both have to push their tyres maybe a little bit harder than they really wanted to.
I hope Lewis Hamilton had his pit lane speed limiter on when he left the pit box there. He was so eager to get out onto the racetrack with just 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining when he left his pit box. Let's hope he didn't speed in the pit lane, and let's hope he can get a clean lap in. It's going to be unbelievable, the fight between the two of them. We're looking at Vettel. He's faster than he has been in the middle sector on this lap. First sector, nothing particularly special by his standards.
Lewis is 2.5 seconds faster on the outlap in the first sector than Alonso. Lewis feeling the need to push earlier. He's taking life out of those tyres.
Vettel goes 6th for BMW, a 1:13.5. We're riding on board with Felipe, his fan club just below us, still going bananas with their drums and their chanting.
Nowhere near in the first sector though, he's 3/10 off. But look at that, wrestling the Ferrari, they're really working hard. Is Massa, solid middle sector though, that's not looking too bad. He might just squeeze on the front row at the moment with this one. We'll keep an eye on it, what's going on back down the field. Heidfeld going much quicker as well. He could just he's going to spoil Raikkonen's day big time, is Heidfeld. Will Massa get on the front row as he goes over the line? And the answer is no. It's the same time, more or less.
Third, yeah, he was 400 slower than he was on his previous lap, so he does not improve. Massive lock-up at the end there. Nick Heidfeld had a poor final sector, so he does not spoil the Ferrari's afternoon. Kimi Raikkonen goes through, and he holds on to 4th place, but it's all about Hamilton and Alonso. Hamilton's quicker in sector 1 than Alonso by 9/100ths of a second. It's looking good for Hamilton.
That was quick from Alonso into turn 8, I tell you. That was superb. I don't know what that'll work. Oh, a little bit of oversteer there in 10 though, and it's a better middle sector for Alonso. Did he lock the wheel slightly into the final turn? Well, 11, effectively almost the final turn. But Hamilton even faster in the middle part. He's going to keep pole, surely.
I think he might well do. Fernando Alonso comes through. Hamilton has been stellar in the middle part of this lap. He's been fractionally quicker in the first part as well. Alonso goes through, he's second anyway. This lap of Lewis's won't make any difference. Can he improve? He does! He goes even faster. A 1:12.331 gives Lewis Hamilton his 2nd consecutive pole position in Formula One and his 4th front row start in 7 races, and given what we know about his race performance, that is a wonderful job by Lewis Hamilton that sets him up beautifully for tomorrow.
So McLaren, Ferrari, and it's the BMW of Heidfeld, Kovalainen 6th for Renault, Vettel 7th for BMW, Trulli 8th, Toyota, Webber 9, Red Bull, Fisichella 10, out-qualified by his teammate Kovalainen. Then tremendous performance from Lewis Hamilton. Alonso knew he hadn't done enough. I think he just made a mistake in turn 11. Let's listen to this.
Wicked, guys. Excellent job, as always. Let's bring it home tomorrow.
Well done, Lewis. That was very good.
Okay, Lewis, that was fantastic. We've got yourself P1, Fernando P2, 1.5 tenths behind you, Massa P3, 4 tenths behind you, Kimi P4, then Heidfeld, then Kovalainen.
Yeah, Alonso came off the back, off the turn 13 and moved to the inside, almost like he knew he was going to start second on the grid and cleaning up the right-hand side of the grid a little bit.
So Lewis Hamilton hasn't just taken pole position here in America, he's taken pole position with an exclamation mark. Tomorrow, the US Grand Prix, he's been looking for his 2nd Grand Prix victory.
Just when we wonder whether it could get any better for Lewis Hamilton, Britain's new star has now taken pole position for tomorrow's United States Grand Prix. 1 week after his first ever Formula One pole came in Montreal, he was the class of qualifying here at Indianapolis today. And Mark Blundell, there was no hint of him inheriting pole position from any Alonso mistakes. He took this pole with supreme authority.
He earned this pole position, and we spoke about him getting stronger and confidence building. And this is the kind of thing that I think everybody else needs to be worried about with Lewis Hamilton, because he's the type of driver, and you've seen it over the years with him, once he gets one result under his belt, he just keeps getting stronger, stronger and stronger. And this performance just underlines that.
And it was McLaren dominating qualifying as Ferrari fell back into the clutches of a strong challenge from BMW. Lewis Hamilton alongside Fernando Alonso on the front row. But an all-Ferrari second row, Massa and Raikkonen, Heidfeld and Kovalainen make up row 3. Sebastian Vettel on his Formula One debut for BMW, a very creditable 7th place on the grid alongside Jarno Trulli, and then Mark Webber and Giancarlo Fisichella make up the top 10. But McLaren's day once again. Let's hear from Ron Dennis.
Yeah, down here with a very happy Ron. Dennis, you were taking in the moment, watching the celebrations, and it's a great job from Lewis, considering he's had a bit of a hard time getting used to this tricky circuit.
Yeah, it's got its own challenges, but I think both drivers done an excellent job. To be honest, we was really focused on getting this, the in-lap right. This is where you can really conserve some fuel if you try hard, and obviously we want to be in the best shape tomorrow to win the race, and we're still focused on that. But tremendous team result. We timed our stops to the last minute, and it put us on a clear circuit on both occasions, so they really had every opportunity to beat each other. And Lewis came marginally out better, but for the team it's just great.
And just for people who might have read a lot in the papers back home, I mean, we've been out here, but in the papers it's gone bonkers about, supposed spats between the drivers, Alonso talking about this and that. What's the approach for the race, and what's the feeling inside the team, Ron?
Well, if you see these guys competitively playing on their Playboys, or whatever you call them, PlayStations.
PlayStation.
Yeah, it could be Playboy, about PlayStations. You just realise it's just a complete load of rubbish, and the problem is that, we try to be cooperative. Press hangs on their every word, and anything that they can take and put a spin on, they do, and from that comes the website title, the headline, and off it goes. But I mean, we're focused on trying to be the best team. We're focused on coming first and second. We are beyond paranoid with equality. We go to phenomenal lengths, and everybody in the team knows that we're here to come first and second. And honestly, as much as everybody wants to portray it different, we really don't care who comes first and who comes second. If we're in that position, we're just delighted.
Well done today. Thank you.
Yes, Ron's definitely one of, or not one of the PlayStation generation. It was an absolutely straightforward battle for pole position, as he was saying there, which means all more credit to Lewis Hamilton.
Indeed, a lot of credit to Lewis. But, he did have a battle on his hands, because Alonso was very strong indeed. And he has looked the quicker driver over the course of the weekend.
It's just, clean laps. Both the McLarens are working superbly, Steve. There's not a lot of energy going into the steering, unlike some of the Ferraris, what we've seen. And, Alonso makes his mark and takes pole position at this point, but still a few minutes left.
And then right behind him, Lewis Hamilton, who gave the impression that he was learning this circuit even through the second qualifying session. Got it absolutely right, nailed it.
Yeah, he did, and that's what Lewis is all about. He keeps learning, he absorbs all the information, and he goes out there and uses it. And, this is the kind of lap that we've seen now, Montreal, seen again here, a precision lap, no mistakes, and just that 10.5 is gained, and that's what it's put him on a pole position. That's what he wants, and that's what he's got.
Another pole position gained, and another point proved for Lewis Hamilton. And both Lewis and Fernando Alonso are in there in the pole position press conference, and we can head there right now.
Lewis, third race now, McLaren have had an all McLaren Mercedes front row. Brilliant performance from you. Again on a circuit, of course, you've never been here before.
Yeah, quite surprised, to be honest. Going into qualifying, we hadn't really found the optimal setup. And I knew that Fernando was obviously extremely quick here. But it's great to see that the team, that we're so quick and ahead of the Ferraris, obviously. And but going into that qualifying session, I just had to put it all out. And on my two last laps in Q3 was spot on. And I think I just beat my best lap at the end. So I couldn't be happier. I didn't really expect to be pole. I thought Fernando would have been quicker, but obviously not.
It's your second lap, just quicker, but not purple in any sector, a very strange phenomenon. But a slight drama last night, had to change the race engine before you came out this morning. And we hear also you got a little bit of hay fever this weekend.
No, I wouldn't say I've got hay fever. Yesterday, I think I don't know, just not really getting much sleep lately and probably just enjoying it too much. But yesterday I didn't feel great. But yeah, they had to change the engine. I think it was an assembly problem or something. But the engine performed very well, so obviously I'm ecstatic. Really didn't, as I said, didn't expect to get pole for again, but very, very pleased and happy for the team.
Congratulations to you. And Fernando, in many ways, commiserations to you. Fastest in every session so far, except the all-important Q3, and just beaten there for the pole.
Yeah, it's been a good weekend for me, no doubts, and I was fastest. P1, P2, P3, Q1, Q2, but not the important one, not Q3. But, being fastest all weekend give me a lot of confidence for tomorrow. Yes, Q3, we know is a different matter, and he plays many factors in Q3. So, I think for tomorrow we can have a strong race, and I'm totally confident.
What were those last 5 minutes of Q3 like for you in terms of the 2 laps you were able to do on those tyres?
They were okay. I think both set of tires were really close to time lap, and I didn't improve too much in the second. I think it was a little bit worse, and I had quite good grip in the car, and I was quite happy with the laps as well. So I think tomorrow we can do really well.
Congratulations, Fernando. And Felipe, it looks as if Ferrari are definitely closer to McLaren Mercedes than they were in Canada. I guess it's a surprise that we have to say that. What's the car like from your point of view?
Well, for sure we are a bit closer, but not enough. So need to be in front, not be closer. So, but for sure the situation is a little bit better than Canada. Canada was pretty difficult weekend for us. Here, starting second row is not a disaster. We know that McLaren is going to be strong in the race, and as they were, in every session. So, but we need to work hard. We need to fight until the end, and that's what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Where do you feel the difference is now between the Ferrari and the McLaren Mercedes, if you had to pinpoint the difference?
I mean, it's not something which really wants to say. I mean, I think it's something we need to understand and try to do better in our car, just to be in front of them. We have some ideas, in the car, in the aerodynamic, in the engine, just to improve the situation, but we need to do as quick as possible.
Thank you, Felipe. And returning to you, Lewis, the first time you've raced in the United States, your thoughts on the atmosphere here, on getting the pole here at Indianapolis, and indeed the speedway itself?
Well, getting my second pole, it's even better than obviously last week. But again, when I came across the line and the team told me I had P1, again screamed in my helmet, and just through the whole lap, just ecstatic. But the audience, the crowd here has been fantastic. I can see outside my garage, I have over in the grandstands, someone has a McLaren Mercedes or Vodafone McLaren Mercedes sign with Lewis on it. And so it's great to see, and there's a lot of British flags out there, and but also a lot of support from the Americans, so we're very happy.
And it's no wonder that Lewis Hamilton is struggling for sleep at the moment, and I'm sure, Mark, that Fernando Alonso is losing sleep at the moment as well. What sort of effect will this further blow have on his morale?
It's a bad dream as far as I'm concerned for Alonso, because he knows that this teammate that he has is capable of beating him now in a race. He knows that he's being beaten in qualifying, and there only looks like one thing, and that's that Lewis is going to get stronger and stronger, and his opposition is a tough one. I think tomorrow's race is also difficult because Alonso's not been that consistent. Lewis has been very consistent in his lap times. That's going to pay off in the race.
Ferrari seeming to take a certain amount of encouragement from getting both their cars on the second row, but it's McLaren dominant still.
Yeah, I mean, the difference, you can see it, visually just between the Ferrari and Massa working at the wheel, Raikkonen chopping away, and just the grip level of what the McLaren cars have got. And that's the problem. If Ferrari can get some consistency, then their speed will creep along with that, but they've still got a way to beat the McLarens.
What sort of pressure are BMW putting on Ferrari now?
Well, I think they are creeping up on the Ferraris, and I think they're even creeping up a little bit on the McLarens at points. And I think, the two drivers this weekend, Heifeld and the new boy, Vettel, done a great job.
Sebastian Vettel in his first Formula One Grand Prix, coming in for Robert Kubica. A very composed performance, and he takes 7th place on the grid.
A very good performance, with the pressure of coming in, filling a seat like this. I think he was only notified midweek that he'd actually be driving in this Grand Prix, and he's not put a foot wrong. And that's the thing with these young guys at the moment. They do take pressure, they don't make mistakes, and that's exactly what a Grand Prix team needs.
Okay, I think we can hear from him right now. He's with Louise.
Sebastian, not bad for a beginner.
Well, I mean, we set the pace up here, so all the beginners have to, do something to get close to him. But apart from that, I mean, I came here Thursday and not knowing what I will do. I mean, I was planning to, take another weekend as a reserve driver, and then I got the chance, got called up for the race seat, and I was quite nervous Thursday to Friday. I didn't sleep a lot, but yesterday we had a good day. And then I found some more sleep tonight, and hopefully, from Saturday to Sunday as well, a bit more sleep. And I think making it to Quali 3 was already a big step, and therefore I'm quite happy.
So are you a bit more relaxed now, or are you still slightly nervous about the race ahead?
No, I mean, we keep racing in junior categories, and more or less we do the same thing. Just in F1 is a bit more competitive. You race against the best drivers in the world, which is a big challenge. And the race is a bit longer, but I feel already much better now, much more familiar with the car, and therefore I'm really looking forward and really pleased to drive the car tomorrow.
But I understand you've been slightly confusing your engineers by using words like kerfuffle on the radio. Have they understood what it means yet?
Yeah, we did. I mean, I used it yesterday, as there was some things going on the track with other cars, and I said I was stuck in traffic and had a bit of kerfuffle with other drivers. But I think they understood.
Thanks.
He's a great young lad, but qualifying is one thing. Racing here at Indianapolis, especially on your F1 debut, is something else. Could he be a bit of a disruptive influence at the start tomorrow?
Well, it's his first Grand Prix start, so he has a lot to think about. The other guys around him will also be thinking, new boy on the block, may make a mistake. He's just got to be aware of who is around him. As long as he's solid into turn one, doesn't put himself in a poor position, he should get through, no problem.
Well, no doubts about Lewis Hamilton's composure as he fires that McLaren off pole position. We know what he's capable of. We know what he can do, and so does his father, and we can hear from Anthony right now.
Well, Anthony, tell me what process Lewis has gone through, because he had a difficult first day, and then through Friday and today, how's he mastered this track?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you what happened on the first day, and but I think what Lewis has done is it's just getting your mind right, isn't it? It's focusing on the job in hand, going around the circuit, trying to find out where your weak spots are, where your advantages are. And I don't think Lewis actually had any weak spots. I think he was fast. Had good first sector and good last sector. He had a little problem in the middle sector, and so trying to counterbalance the middle sector and keep the fast sectors on the other side, gave him a little bit of food for thought. But he came back this morning, worked it all out in his mind, knew what he was going about, and it's fantastic. I'm really pleased with this one today because I know he will be.
Yeah, especially so this weekend. Why do you think?
I'm not so sure. I mean, it's great to get 2 poles, you know, in a row, but this one was extremely special because, you know, I wasn't expecting it. But yeah, happy we've got it.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Nice.
It is an extraordinary story, which just gets better and better, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think actually listening to Anthony there, they weren't expecting pole position because I think they knew that Alonso just had a little bit of an upper hand yesterday and Lewis is just having a slight struggle. But he went away, analysed it, he's come back, and yet again you see that big learning curve going on, but he proves a point and just goes P1.
Heikki Kovalainen is also on a bit of a learning curve. He's had his problems certainly in recent Grand Prix. A bit of a return to form for the Renault driver today as he puts his car on row 3, and we can hear from Heikki.
Well done, Heikki. Were you happy with that?
Pretty happy, yeah. It was reasonable lap, and I guess the gap to the others was too big to really, you know, if I had found another tenth or two, it would not have made any difference. So it's all right.
How do you see things panning out in the race?
I think all right. I think we have a good opportunity, you know, to score good points here. I think still the top 4, top 5 seems to be quite strong, but we'll see. We give it a big push and see where we end up.
So let's confirm that grid once again. The all-McLaren front row with Lewis Hamilton on pole position alongside his teammate Fernando Alonso, and then an all-Ferrari second row, which we will confirm for you in just a moment. But what sort of a race do you feel that we're in for tomorrow, Mark?
I think we're in for a great race again, like we had in Montreal, but you know, the plus point for me, Lewis Hamilton, consistency, tyre wear, he is the strongest package at this moment. Ferrari also, I think, could be a little bit stronger than what they were in Montreal. And let's wait and see. BMW have always run a little bit of a heavier fuel load. It may pay off at this circuit.
All Ferrari second row, as we've been saying, and this is the reaction from within the Ferrari camp.
Stefano, second row is pretty good. So how was that as a day for the office at Ferrari?
I mean, I think that for sure today McLaren showed that on the quick lap it was very fast. But for us it was important after the last race in Canada to show that we were there. And I'm pretty sure that tomorrow the race will be very long. I mean, we need to see the consistency of the tyres. But the most important thing that we are there.
Yeah, we were talking about the car since Spain really hasn't been on the McLaren's pace. What's happened? Have they improved or have you dropped back?
I mean, difficult to say. For sure they have did a good job, no question on that. But on our side, we don't have to, you know, to overreact on the things. We need to work. That's it. Thank you.
Right, here is that grid once again, or at least the first 5 rows. All McLaren front row, Hamilton on pole, Massa and Raikkonen on the second row. Heidfeld and Kovalainen, BMW and Renault, row 3. And Sebastian Vettel with Jarno Trulli. Mark Webber with Giancarlo Fisichella. And David Coulthard just outside that top 10 might be able to adopt a pretty favourable race strategy. Ralf Schumacher, Jenson Button qualifying reasonably well, and did Mark seem to be reasonably satisfied at the end of that second session?
No, I think the Honda are making a little bit of progress, but obviously they'd like to get back to the form from last season. But I think they're a little bit happy because they're in front of the Super Aguris, which is one of the main competitors.
And Takuma Sato, the hero for Super Aguri in Montreal last weekend, failing to come through the first session of qualifying today. Give us a final thought. If Lewis was able to make it back-to-back wins here, what would be the effect on the championship and on the sport in general?
Well, he's already 8 points ahead of everyone else if he has another win, and we have a few problems behind him again. Maybe Alonso has a rough race, he's going to have a commanding lead, and that's something which will be remarkable with a guy only in his 7th Grand Prix. Something very special.
And could he do something very special on the circuit where Dario Franchitti won the Indy 500 just 3 weeks ago? Lewis Hamilton on pole position for tomorrow's United States Grand Prix. A further chance to see highlights of this qualifying session on ITV1 at around midnight tonight. And then live race coverage of the US Grand Prix, that comes tomorrow. That will also be on ITV1 with all the build-up starting at 5 o'clock. And ahead of that on ITV4 will be the latest live action from the British Superbike Championship. That comes from Mondello Park in Ireland. But after the glory of Montreal, the magic is still with Britain's Lewis Hamilton. He's on pole position for tomorrow's United States Grand Prix. Join us for guaranteed excitement early tomorrow evening. Bye-bye.